and welcome to the House of Family Therapy, faculty friends, and a little bit of fun, a podcast on the world of systemic and family therapy featuring the therapists. In an era of prolific podcasting, there are so many amazing therapists offering important and valuable thoughts and insights into the world of mental health, including many amazing systemic and family therapists. Yet, as two licensed therapists and educators of therapists in training, what often fascinates us most is not those thoughts and insights, but the people themselves, those who have chosen to become systemic and family therapists, whose personal stories have driven them to sit with, hold space for, and be in relationship with others who are struggling through and going through hardship. The podcast aims to explore and interview a variety of family therapists in different spaces and places in their personal journeys and careers to highlight their humanity, their passions, their motivations to be helpers and healers. And in true experiential and systemic foundational principles, we do this with a little bit of joy, humor, and laughter. Thank you for joining us. Today we have Dr. Sandra Espinoza with us. And we're just going to, as we do in this podcast, launch right into some questions for you. Those really hard hitting in a rallying game of this or that. So I'm just going to give you two options, and you tell me this or that.
Okay, sounds good.
So, glass half full or glass half empty?
Glass half full.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert?
See the future or change the past?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to go with see the future because anxiety.
Okay. Pizza or tacos?
I'm Mexican. I have to say tacos.
For me, there's only one answer, so I'm glad you got the right one. Reading one book at a time or multiple books at
Ooh,
once?
multiple books at a time.
Sunrise or sunset?
I'm going to go with sunset.
A really hard-hitting one here. Sneeze confetti or hiccup bubbles?
Hiccup bubbles. My kids would love that.
Sci-fi or fantasy?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm going to go with sci-fi.
Puzzle night or trivia night?
Trivia night.
Beach day or pool day?
Pool day.
This is not a this or that, but we ask everybody this question. What animal are you and why?
I had a feeling you were going to ask this,
Yep.
Dr. Webster. I feel like I've heard you ask it before, and I should have probably prepared an answer. I'm just going to go with a bear because the whole mama bear kind of identity thing has definitely been resonating the past few years as I've transitioned into motherhood. So a sense of protection and nurturing, and they're also just so cute.
Thank you. With us is Dr. Sandra Espinoza, and she is an associate professor and a branch director for the couple and family therapy here at Alliant and the Los Angeles campus. Bilingual therapist and a second-generation Mexican-American, Dr. Espinoza integrates cultural humility, social justice, and advocacy in her scholarship, teaching, and practice. She maintains a small private practice supporting mostly interracial couples and Latinx clients. She has over 14 years of clinical experience working with undocumented community and has presented on topics of immigration and deportation at local and national levels. She's deeply grounded in her roles as mother, partner, and daughter, which also influence her clinical research.
Thank you, Dr. Webster.
Thank you for being with us today. As we often do in family therapy, talk about our social positioning. Is there any of like your social locations and intersectionalities that are really important to you when you think about family therapy and how you show up in this space that you want to share with our folks today?
Yeah, I think the salient identities are, I think my gender position, identify as a cis woman, being Mexican, second generation, a daughter of two immigrants. It's not that I think that these are like salient positions. I just think that they're important to mention because they inform so much about how I see the world and how I see clients. But obviously being, again, straight, able-bodied, being neurotypical, all of those things just definitely color right? The way that I see the world. I think it could be in good ways and also in limited ways. And so I think it's important to mention them regardless.
So I'm going to take on the next section. How did you find your way to family therapy, or what made you get into family therapy?
Yeah. So, before becoming a therapist, I had been working in education, specifically kind of like an after school education for most of my college years. So after kind of turning 18, I started to work for AmeriCorps, which is kind of like a local branch of the Peace Corps at Cal State Fullerton when I went to go to college there. And I used to volunteer at like an apartment complex that would also provide tutoring for low income children. And then from there, it really just started to grow and started working in other after school programs, doing after school educational support, mostly working with children of color in different types of the neighborhoods. And I did this because I think that back then I used to think that I was going to become a teacher, like a K through 8 teacher. That was my desire. And then was pursuing that. I started to work at the Boys and Girls Club in San Gabriel Valley and was the teen center director there. And I would organize a lot of outings for the teen members, take them on college tours. We would go camping and really formed really, really close relationships with a lot of the teens that attended the Boys and Girls Club and really, really was loving that work while also finishing up my bachelor's degree. And it was so rewarding. I loved going to work. And I started to feel limited in the impact that I was making on their lives because a lot of the kids that attended the club were at risk youth, had a lot of things happening at home that were challenging. I wanted and had this desire, again, to be able to help in a different way outside of just being able to spend 2, 3 hours with them after school. I also had very limited parent engagement at that time. The parents, the only time we would work with the parents is like we would see them at pickup and exchange a few words, and then the parents would take the child and leave. So I didn't have a lot of access to the whole family. And that was something that I was wanting and was curious about, again, because I wanted to make a larger impact on these children's lives. And so I started doing some research and started to figure out, okay, what degree could I pursue that might give me access to families in this maybe more therapeutic, supportive way. And also had a friend who had graduated from Alliant and was having a conversation with her about this desire to work with families. And she said, you should look at Alliant. I have a friend that went there. She had a really wonderful experience. It's local. You should check it out. And so that's when I started to also do some more research on Alliant and kind of ended up here. But I think to sum it up, it really stemmed from my curiosity and desire to work with families as a whole, just because I really kind of knew and identified early on that even though that individual work is important, if I really wanted to create that systemic change, then I needed access to multiple family members. And so that's really what ended up leading me into MFT.
It's awesome. And how did you decide to transition back to academia? I don't know if you would call it a going back, but how did you decide to transition into academia?
So growing up and being a college student, and I think even being a graduate student, it was very rare that I ever had Latina educators. I think I could think of one my whole entire life. My seventh grade teacher was Latino. And so that wasn't really that representation for me in my educational experience. And so I never thought to myself, oh, it's possible for you to be a professor, to work in higher education. And maybe now as I'm talking this out with you, I'm like, oh, maybe that is why I decided that at one point I wanted to be a teacher of some sort, because I didn't have a lot of Latino teachers. And so anyway, so it wasn't a possibility for me. It wasn't a dream of mine. I didn't think it was possible. And then I came to Alliant and had really wonderful mentorship. Shout out to Dr. Sean Davis from the Sacramento campus, and started working with him. I met him during an immersion trip in Italy. He was the one that started to have these mentorship conversations with me about like, hey, would you ever consider teaching? And I was honest with him and was like, no, I have literally never thought of this. Again, I was an introvert, really quiet, the quietest person in class usually. And he just kind of planted that seed and started to give me some opportunities to TA, to RA, and then ultimately to help him teach a class in Mexico City when we used to hold our immersion programs over there. And so I think that really helped me start to entertain the idea of academia. I started doing some research with him. That was really exciting and opened that door for me. So I really always want to give Dr. Davis credit for opening up that opportunity for me, because I just historically didn't ever think
Sure.
that I was going to end up in academia. And now I'm so glad that I took that jump, because working with students is just one of my favorite things in the world. So I'm glad that I did it.
Thank you so much. So, what was your journey in discovering your specialties or your niche? And could we also name specifically what you identify as your specialty or niche?
Yeah. So I think I'll start off, I guess, clinically. Clinically, I mostly work with couples, mostly interracial couples. And I'll kind of talk about that journey, as well as working with a lot of Latino families, and specifically working with undocumented or mixed status Latino families. And so I'll start with the couples. I didn't have a lot of experience working with couples in my practicum experience, traineeship. I think we all know it's just really hard to get that experience usually at the beginning of your career. And so it wasn't until I was in my doctoral program and in my associateship that I started to have a little bit more access to couples.
Hmm.
The doctoral exam also forced me to work with a couple, and I started to really, really enjoy that work. It was really exciting for me. I almost felt like I could see a clearer picture of the presenting problem when I had multiple people in the room versus an individual. I know that some people feel like when they have two or more people, it's just a little bit more chaotic, it's a little bit more overwhelming. But for me, it made things a lot more clear. It actually made the work easier when I had two, three people in the room. And so I started, once I finished my associateship and was kind of starting to dabble in private practice, try to only work with couples as much as possible, really try to specialize in that, try to market myself as a couples therapist, and have really stuck with it ever since. And so now most of my practice, I'd say like 80% of my practice is couples, and also by chance are interracial couples. So that was the part that I never set out to specialize in, and yet those are the couples that have been coming. And I'm not sure if that's also because of where I'm located in California. I'm in Los Angeles, right? We're a very diverse city, and so it just happens to be that there's more likelihood that you'll be in an interracial couple, or it could be that I'm also in an interracial marriage. And I think there's like an anecdote, right? That like clients find you. What is the anecdote? I don't know if you guys know, right? But it's like clients will find you. The kind of clients that you're going to work with will like end up finding you. My husband is Chinese. Again, I'm Mexican. And so I think maybe just having that experience has somehow drawn those types of clients to my practice.
I am sort of smiling to myself as I'm thinking of, I don't know if you quite mean it this way, but the term that's coming up is therapy karma. So,
And my version of
oh,
that, right?
go
I
ahead.
always tell students that the universe will gift you the clients that you need.
Hmm.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes.
And it's true, you learn so much about yourself, about your own relationships, about your own family dynamics through your clients, which is this other kind of like beautiful, invisible gift. So I've been really grateful for that, and have been really enjoying doing that. And then yes, the other part of it is working with a lot of Latino families and documented families. So I am bilingual in Spanish. And so have been working with Latino families from the very beginning of my career, just because there's a big need in California for Spanish speakers. And again, wasn't really setting out on working with immigrant families. And yet that was what was happening. That was what was knocking on the door. I think the interest in working with undocumented families happened through my work with children, where I was seeing a lot of children at the school settings and would notice that they were struggling behaviorally or academically, and then would find out that they had a parent who had been removed from the home through detention or deportation, and really acknowledging how profoundly that was impacting their well-being and their functioning. And again, wanting to learn more about this forced separation and its impact on the family system. I mean, both of my parents are immigrants, but we're lucky enough to come to the United States with some documentation, and we're able to obtain documentation pretty easily after their arrival here. But I also do kind of like have that connection, and what's made me passionate about working with this community is also obviously coming from an immigrant family. And then I also want to mention I did my associateship too at an agency called Asian Pacific Counseling and Treatment Center, where we would serve a lot of Asian immigrant families, but also a lot of Latino immigrant families. And there I was specifically working with a lot of women, a lot of mothers who were undocumented, and working on their mental health to kind of get back on their feet. And that work was really inspiring also in motivating me to do clinical work with this community. And then that also ultimately impacted and informed my research around looking at how forced separation affects relationships and the well-being of individuals and families. So yeah, that's a little bit about that journey.
Thank you so much for sharing about that. I can hear the passion in your voice and the meaningfulness of that work. What is new and exciting in your world, topic wise, right now?
I mean, it's definitely not exciting, but I think the conversation around immigration has been really salient in my community the past 3-4 months. I've been working with the undocumented community since 2012, clinically 2014, research wise. And so the topic isn't necessarily new. It's very, very familiar.
Sure.
Again, I've been committed to it for, over 10 years. And yet every few years, it becomes a lot more visible in the media and in conversations. And so I'd probably say that it's back, that part is back because of what is happening sociopolitically. And so the past summer, I've really been spending my summer providing trainings around California on how to work with the undocumented population. Again, given the political climate, there has been a big need and call for that work the past few months. I've also been able to organize a cohort of therapists who are offering pro bono services to undocumented individuals. And I have a list of almost 90 therapists who are providing free services. And we've been able to help at least 40 families in the past 3 months in providing, again, free services and access to free therapy. So that part has been really, really exciting and rewarding because the clients can just come. They get up to 3 free sessions with a possibility to extend, and there's no strings attached. It's really just therapists donating their time to working with this community. So I would say that has probably been the focus of my work the past 3 months, and has been deeply, deeply rewarding.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's really amazing work that you've been engaged in. So this podcast, right, hopefully some of our students listen, and some of our future students, right, are listening to our stories. What would you say are like takeaway messages, sort of speaking to our students and hopefully some future students?
Let's see. Yeah, I can take this question in a few directions. So let me see. Okay, one piece of advice that I typically give students is to take risks in their traineeship and maybe associateship. And when I mean taking risks, I mean being able to say yes to professional opportunities that might come their way. So if a faculty member is saying, hey, I'm working on this research project, I'm looking for a volunteer, to try to not lead with fear and anxiety and just say, no, I'm not ready, or no, I'm not going to be good enough, and lean into the opportunity and say yes anyway. My experience had been that there were so many times in my professional journey that there was opportunities that came up in the beginning I would say no to because I was really nervous. I was really scared. I had imposter syndrome. And somehow later on in my career was able to say yes to more things. And that really opened up my professional world. Yes, it was usually more work. Yes, it was usually a lot more stressful and scary, but there was always a payoff. There was always a reward at the end of doing it, regardless of how stressful it was. And so I really try to encourage my students to just say yes to things and to try to not lead, again, with fear and doubt. Because again, usually there is a payoff of some sort, whether that's just being more professionally ready, or having a job opportunity, or having a research opportunity, or getting a little bit closer to your specialty, getting better at your niche, whatever it is. Saying yes to risks really gets you just a little bit closer to that. So that would probably be one big piece. And then I'd say just really quickly, the other one would be to find a mentor early on. Again, my mentor really changed the trajectory of my life. And I'm so grateful that I was able to make that connection sooner than later. And even then, I wish kind of like, well, what would it have been like if I had a mentor during my bachelor's training? I didn't find somebody until almost my doctorate program. What would it have been like if I had some of that guidance earlier on, especially as a first generation college student where my parents weren't able to give me a lot of that educational direction? I think it would have been really helpful. And I think something that's really beautiful about Alliant, and why I've stayed with Alliant for so long, is that I think the faculty do a really good job at mentorship. I want to speak for all faculty that it is just something about the culture that we have here that we desire to mentor. We enjoy it. And so I really want students to hear that piece, that we're always willing to provide that for them if that's something that they want.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
you kind of spoke to this way early on, right? The fun part of our job is the students and the teaching, right? That's why we show up. That's why we come, and to have that shared perspective amongst the faculty, like that we are here for, to teach and mentor the students. That really resonates with me.
You said it very eloquently, Dr. Espinoza, about how in the sense, and you too, Dr. Webster, about the students give us meaning, and they breathe life into this field. Yeah, it is amazing to watch on both on multiple systemic levels, I guess, if you will, in terms of what happens in the classrooms, what happens with clients, what happens with our own clients, and even administratively as well.
And kind of in that breath, right? Like thinking about our students. What's something a student's told you or taught you that you will never forget?
My gosh, I have to marinate on that one for a second. Students really teach us a lot. And it isn't maybe a particular student, but just like a trend that I've seen in students is just their kind of like tenacity to finish their degree despite having a lot of life stressors and contextual factors that might be impacting their journey. I've seen, students who come to the program and are working 3, 4 jobs, caretaking for family members, have a baby in the middle of the program, and somehow manage to graduate with straight A's, and also being engaged in extracurricular activities. I am just always so in awe of how, when a student is really just like set out to accomplish a goal, they will do whatever it takes to make that happen. That's really inspiring to me, especially as somebody who, when I was in my master's program, also had to work, was the only daughter at home, so a lot of caretaking of my parents. It really resonates to me when students have that commitment to their education and don't let these other contextual factors slow them down. So again, always just really inspired by those types of stories.
So, kind of last, serious question here. What do you see as like the secret sauce or the magic of family therapy?
I know this is going to be kind of like a cliche answer, but again, I think being able to be in a space with family members or partners, being able to be in a space with these people in your life, and then having the safety of being able to speak the unspoken, potentially for the first time in your life. Just being able to, it's hard for me to articulate, but like just being able to like be in that room all together with the opportunity, again, to share these things that you typically wouldn't share while you're at the dinner table, while you're laying in bed together, to me is so incredibly special and sacred in so many ways. And so I think to me that just even creating that opportunity is what creates a lot of magic. Sometimes I think that that's all people need is the room to be able to do that, the almost permission, right, to be able to do that. And then I would say that the other kind of like secret component, of course, is the therapist and the therapeutic relationship, and how that's nurtured and kind of cultivated. Because I think even sometimes with the clients do have that space, if they don't feel that the therapist is truly engaged, genuine, authentic, it's harder to use that opportunity to be vulnerable and to be soft. So I think maybe as I'm processing this out loud, it's the combination of having the opportunity and then making sure that that therapist is a good match for that family or couple system.
Very well put. So now we're going to bookend, no pun intended, our talk with another set of rapid fire questions, but this time is going to be family therapy related. Who is your favorite historical family therapist?
Historical family therapist. I would have to say Bowen. When I just think about family therapy, I think about Bowen. Sorry, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be giving explanations, but I'm giving you explanations.
No, go for it. It makes
That's where I
it
go.
interesting.
That's where I go.
If you were an intervention, what would you be?
I would be a family sculpture. I am a firm believer in my worldview of therapy that change happens in real time. I love being able to use symbolism in the therapy room. Again, I like having multiple people in the family room. So to me, in the therapy room, so to me, a family sculpture really embodies all of those things.
Which theory would you least likely date?
Date?
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, again, I feel like everyone's going to be saying this in their responses, but CBT, I do not want somebody to intellectualize anything that I am trying to say or offer. I want to process. I need feelings, not just cognitive behavioral way of conceptualizing my experience.
A little bit a harder one, but do you have a favorite like therapy or therapist quote?
Oh my God, that is a hard one. Dr. Webster.
Or the essence of something that's
Yeah,
really
there is a
stood out,
really
you know?
good satire quote that I am also blanking on. So, and I probably can't think of it off the top of my head, but I think something that I really like and took away from Virginia Satir was her ability to see the humanness in all clients. And as Dr. Danishapur always says, right, we need to be gentle on people and tough on systems. And I think to me, Satir really embodied that despite a person's flaws, we believe that they're innately good, that they're innately capable of creating change. So I think, I think Virginia Satir really resonates with me in how she kind of saw clients and saw the world. We're all just human beings trying our best.
Nice. All right. Last rapid fire. And I feel like it's the most interesting one. If you had a therapy superpower, what would it be and why? It can't be real. And how would it work?
So it can't be real.
Superpower.
I think it would go back to kind of what I was saying about how can we help people be gentler and softer on others and instead acknowledge the impact of systems on behavior and the way they kind of manifest in relationships. So I guess if my superpower were to be right, that if I were in a session with a family or a couple who are being really hard on each other, that I could somehow magically help them see, okay, this problem is so much bigger than your partner, than your family, and instead is coming from this bigger ism, this bigger other ideological systemic problem, so that they could somehow magically have this like empathy and compassion for their family member or partner.
I was in my head thinking of like what metaphor would be to describe it. Is there anything that comes to mind for that? Or I could tell you what I was thinking for
Yeah,
you.
no, just tell me.
So, and this touches on a little bit of what I chose for mine, which is magic wand. And
Yeah,
also empathy. Empathy
yes.
is kind of what also came up in my mind.
Yes, I like that. I'm probably going to
Yes.
copy you. I haven't heard yours, but I would say magic wand that would just like it's almost like you are magically having them be empathetic for the other, and then
Hmm.
also magically kind of granting them this kind of like sociopolitical consciousness that would also allow them to kind of like critically examine what is happening in their relationships.
Nice. Love it.
Well, that is our podcast, Dr. Espinoza. Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your journey and your story. It's really amazing when get to hear about our faculty and where they came from. It's the joy of doing this, and so we're very grateful for your time and for you sharing. For everybody else, toodaloo until next time.
Toodaloo.
Thank you for having me.